Agent of F.O.X.G.L.O.V.E. Ingobnito by Lark Sabre. Read by Lark Sabre. Chapter 14. Boss Brasco. Inside La Gobra Nostra there were more brooding goblin hoodlums, sipping their bog waters, sitting at little circular cafe-style tables cobbled together from whatever non-bodily waste products Humogs flushed down the lav or fly-tipped on Braddock's meadow. She-goblin waitresses waited on tables, wearing the ubiquitous neon lime green lipstick and nail varnish. Facially, they were indistinguishable from Sharona, the fairy gobliness, to Hunter's hidden human eyes, even more indistinguishable than the words fairy and fairy. But maybe real godbers could more readily discern hallmarks of individuality or even rat-nosed, bat-eared beauty amongst each other. The waitresses were decked out in mini-skirt-length tunics, showing off their knobbly knees, shorter than the tunics Lefty and the other crew members wore, though their knees were no less knobblier, and their gobbo drip was embellished with what passed for goblin jewellery. This mostly consisted of shiny pieces of human rubbish, e.g. drinks can ring pulls, lost shopping trolley tokens, even the springs of clothes pegs, either worn on their fingers like rings, or clipped to their bat ears, or strung upon a length of ratty twine tied at the back with a knot. Like human waiters, the she-goblins demonstrated great dexterity when balancing dozens of empty goblets on small trays as they moved from table to table. They also cackled exaggeratedly or feigned respectful fascination at the gobversation of La Gobra Nostra's patrons, not unlike human serving staff in search of a tip. Tucked away at the back of La Gobra Nostra's front of house, there was a but-ugly bevy of she-goblins fussing over some Godber VIP. Lefty clarified just who this bigwig was. Hunter kinda had a hunch anyway.
That's the boss's table. He's the biggest VIG in Little Whipperly. If I vouch for you, Joey, you gotta understand that's my schnozzola in the rat hole, capiche? So be a stand-up gobbo and show the boss ain't no one can sprain the sprouts of Big City Joey, eh? Except the boss, of course, and maybe your new best friend Lefty.
Lefty, Lucky, John Gobby and Hunter, a.k.a. Joey Big City Pumpkins, approached Boss Brasco's table, and the cackling entourage of she-goblins parted like a lime-green lipstick Red Sea. There at the table sat an obese goblin in a sopping wet bib with pale cream splodges all over it. In front of this disgusting diner, the still pulsating abdomens of orb-weaver spiders were pyramided on a plate, their legs, heads and jaws all plucked off. Every time Boss Brasco, for it was he, picked up an orb-weaver abdomen and sank his godber fangs into it, out spurted a sideways mini geyser of pale cream fluid, some of which hit his bib and some of which missed. It didn't seem to bother either the boss or the other goblins, or at least his hangers-on daren't object if it did, but Hunter found it off-putting, especially as Boss Brasco's staff, whether of the waitress or gangster variety, had to keep sidestepping one way then the other to dodge a spray of orb-weaver innards. The she-goblin attendants intuitively peeled away from the table, leaving the boss free to confer with his gabbo Lefty and the three gobs bodies, of which Hunter was one, or pretending to be.
Lefty. What you's doing bringing some mooklin I ain't never seen before in my life to the club? Has he been frisked for itty-bitty fingerbell wings? He could be one of them fairy feds Ingobnito.
Boss Brasco scolded Lefty with a quiet and husky intensity. Hunter noticed Boss Brasco had two tiny hexagonal nuts apiece for rings on each of his squat goblin pinky fingers, the kind of nuts you screw around bolts, not the ones in peanut butter. Boss Brasco was a yellowy green, chartreuse hue himself, so his pinky fingers were pink in name only. Maybe he started off green, and all the pus-coloured arachnid blood has turned him yellower from the inside out, theorised Hunter to himself, as he turned to look at Lefty and listened to the gabbo's reply on a subject very close to Hunter's heart, namely the question of whether Boss Brasco was buying into the whole Joey Pumpkins persona. But what he saw was a look of panic unfurl like a fraidy gob flower upon Lefty's mahogany mug, and that panic was contagious. Hunter's aforementioned heart started pounding within his California surfer dude sweated chest, pounding like his dad did upon the bathroom door when he was dying for a pee after Hunter's mum had spent 3 hours in the bath.
Yeah, of course we did, boss,
lied Lefty, having just remembered that Lucky spied the Toadstool Ferrymobile in Braddock's meadow, just as Lefty and his cronies were about to give Joey Pumpkins his precautionary wing frisk. A vital piece of basic Mobilino housekeeping had been forgotten in all the excitement of crazy big city Joey going loco at the fairy Fed car and the subsequent backslapping and banter. If Lefty had invited a fairy spy straight into La Gobra Nostra, Lefty would very promptly suffer a similar fate to the orb weavers on the boss's plate.
Hey, John Gobby, give Joey the once-over, eh? Show the boss I ain't no no-nos.
John Gobby paced over to Hunter, smiled sheepishly, and put his arms around Hunter's waist, as if he was about to slow dance with him, then briefly patted the undercover agent's back down. Please don't check my pockets, 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 thought Hunter, even though he surmised the walkie-talkie's invisibility was sure to fox a gormless godber like John Gobby. If these unspoken pleas had been intended as a prayer to some fairy god of good fortune, then his prayers were answered, as John Gobby was soon satisfied by this brisk frisk for any telltale stumpy wings. Hunter was of course a wingless wonder, being a miniaturized human under his mask rather than a Tinkerbell. Lest we forget, fairy magic could never completely disguise fairy wings by shrinking them to naught, for they were a fairy's birthright.
He's clean, Lefty,
confirmed John Gobby, and Lefty's gold-toothed grin returned.
I told you, boss, I can vouch for him. He's a friend of mine, and he'd like to be a friend of ours. This gobster, he's called Joy Pumpkins, and he's from the big city. Get this, boss. They ain't even got no Tinkerbells there because of the pollution and that. But even then, he sees a fairy Fed car, and he goes goo-goo get Jupats. He's the kind of enforcer we need on the crew, a real wing ripper,
recommended Lefty to the boss. Boss Brasco wiped some orb weaver abdomen juice from his pursed lips with his gunk-stained bib and furrowed his chartreuse brows.
Lefty, haven't I been good to you?
He asked, a question to which Lefty nodded his head furiously in reply, still a little nervy after forgetting to wing frisk Joe Pumpkins thoroughly the first time round. But before the garrulous Gabbo could embellish the head nodding with glowing testimonials to the boss's generous nature, Boss Brasco raised his hand to silence Lefty and continued on his monologue.
Lefty, I've been good to you. I gave you a taste of the action. As much bog water as you can slurp. As many gobsnut pieces as you can scuff. You great big gobble gavone. And what do? You come in, spreading my sprouts, with some mooklin, some empty tunic no-nos who tells you he's from the big city when there ain't no Tinkerbells, and yet you say he's got beef with Tinkerbells. Well, which is it, Lefty? How come this big city wise gob's got beef with Tinkerbells if they ain't even on his patch, you dumb?
Levitating leprechauns, thought Hunter. That's actually quite a good point. This boss Brasco is sharp as a shark-fin sandwich cut into triangles. No wonder he's the boss. Lefty spun round to glare at Hunter accusingly, partly because the boss was spreading his sprouts, and partly because the boss had picked up on a somewhat glaring hole in Hunter's cover story. Hunter again tapped into his newfound talent for making things up on the spot, all for a higher cause, of course. Yes, sir, Boss Brasco, very perceptive. And I must say, what a lovely establishment you have here. And what a lovely bib you're wearing. Well, if you must know, if you really, simply, absolutely, completely cannot live without knowing why I hate those Tinkerbells so much, I'll tell you. Tell you right now. And the reason is, the real reason, yes, the unvarnished truth is that I'm well gel of their magic. Yes, I wish I could cast spells like they can. It's just not fair. Gets me pretty salty, to be honest with you, sir. I mean, boss. Hunter wasn't sure this reason was all that convincing, though he had heard a supervillain remark that the best lies have a kernel of truth on a cartoon show. He didn't exactly know what a kernel was in this context. He had always thought it was something to do with the army, as Hunter's dad's favourite wrestler was called Colonel Clothesline, and he wore army fatigues, though they were embroidered with gold and pink sequins. But whatever the definition of colonel/colonel, Hunter understood that what the proverb was getting at is that a fib is more likely to be believed if it's 10% true. And this fib was 10% true, more than 10% true. Hunter did wish humans had powers of sorcery too. Fairies were magic hoggers, from what he could see. Boss Brasco stared at Hunter intently, a single drop of orb weaver abdomen juice slithering down his long, pointed chin. This, the chin Boss Brasco was born with, and which protruded from a broader, rounder, double or even quadruple set of chins, which were the result of the gluttonous life he had secured for himself at the top of the Mobilino crime family. Hunter thought Boss Brasco looked like an obese version of the Mr. Punch puppet from the bonkers old-school puppet show he'd watched at the seaside last year, except Boss Brasco was chartreuse and ate spiders, whilst Mr. Punch was ruddy-faced and spent his time tug-of-warring with a crocodile over some sausages. Boss Brasco's spider-blood-flecked lips began to curl upwards at the edges. The boss, the godfather, the Don of Little Whiffley, was smiling.
He's got beef with them because he wants a piece of their action. Hey, Lefty, this guy here's got smarts. That's exactly what we got cooking down there, Joey. We got our hooter huffers and bugsies, but that ain't goo-goo get-you-gets. It's an embarrassment. Forget about it. Now that fairy magic is an offer you can't refuse.
Boss Brasco huskily concurred with Hunter, the undercover agent's improvised line having apparently struck a chord with the Don.
So you want to be a friend of ours, eh? I'll tell you something, Joy Pumpkins from the big city. You will want in when I show you what the Mobilino crew's new racket is, you wise cub. The Mobilino crew's getting into the magic business big time,
announced Boss Brasco. He stood up with a wheeze and a waddle, wrenched his bib off his neck, and beckoned Hunter, Lefty, and the two other goblin goons to follow him.
Come on, let's stop flapping our gums. I got me something I want to show you, Joey, from the big city. Something that's gonna even the skull with them finger bells for good.